We're going to ask Commissioner Campbell to lead us in invocation and the pledge.
Everyone, if you would, please bow your head as we pray. Dear Heavenly Father God, we thank you for this time. We thank you for this day, God. We thank you for your grace, your mercy that you bestowed upon us. As we go through this meeting, God, we ask that you give us the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding that may lead this city in the right direction. We pray these prayers in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, sir. Roll call, please.
Mayor Terrell Hill.
Here.
Commissioner Brown. Here. Commissioner Borum.
Present.
Commissioner Campbell.
Present.
Commissioner McCaskill.
Here.
Sam Deputy.
Present.
Terry Service.
Present.
Let the record reflect all members of present and accounted for. And we have a quorum. We've got public comment at this time. Is there anyone here for public comment? Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. No action will be taken on any issues of public comment. However, you can fill out a yellow speaker card in the back of the room if you are here for public comment. Seeing no one here for public comment, we'll close public comment. We're going to go ahead and move into our presentation and discussion of our budget. The proposed fifth budget, Central Business District, North Historic, South Historic, fiscal year 2018-2019 term calendar requirements. We're going to have that presentation by Ms. Becker. I think she's going to be joined by Mr. Griffith, part of it. And for the purposes of what we've got, we'll kind of leave it informal. I think the recording will pick you up from where you're sitting, and so we can just kind of move forward with the presentation. Do we need to dim the lights for the...
Are you able to see, or would you like the lights to be dimmed a little? There you
That's
go.
good.
Okay.
And we have that, this is the same thing we have.
It is.
Right, okay, good, we're good.
That one is fine. We'll give
So
it
I
to
will
you.
note that whenever you, that was sent out last night, there is one, page 2 is different. It had the 16, 17, 17, 18 instead of 17, 18, 18, 19. But in your books, it is corrected.
Okay, so that's what we have.
As long as you're looking in your books, you're okay. Yeah, so I just want to start out by saying thank you. We've been working very hard to get this prepared for you. This is the proposed budget. So we've had input from the different advisory committees, and so we're here today to workshop these numbers. So if you have any questions, concerns, please let us know as we go through this. It may look a little different this year, as you know. Matt is not with us, however, if you have any questions. So the first screen that we come to is the increment value. This is based off of the property appraiser figures. Each one of these are increasing the property values anywhere from 5 to 6%. So that's what these numbers here represent. There's no change in the millage rate that we're proposing. That's the tentative millage that was accepted last commission meeting. So this is we move on to the South Historic District. We, as a trend, we budget 95% of the revenues, therefore we can be conservative. And then this is where your expenditure line. So this is where, if you have any questions, just let me know. We have the Homes and Garden Tour, the annual dues and training, the home improvement program. Signage is new to this, or new this year, this fiscal year. We have River Street improvements back on the budget. Last year it went away. This year we've brought it forward. Porch Fest is a new line item. Landscaping, and then we have the transfer to utility, and that is based on the 33% that was approved.
You want me to speak to that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's still just the 33% budget number. It could be a little bit less or a little bit more. We're having to put that project back out to bid. We're seeing some increasing material costs associated with what's going on in the world right now.
we'll be back before you with a final number. There's also one other modification. The South District did remind us that they are not proposing to do the Homes and Garden Tour, so that'll probably zero that out unless you advise us to keep it.
Okay, so moving on to downtown.
Any questions? I know we got both of we got the South Historic Neighborhood Association here as well. And also we've got a limited number of people in the audience as well. If you got questions, you can kind of just, as long as we keep some form of decorum, we can kind of move through those, make sure we answer any questions that may be there. So if anyone has any questions, just kind of raise your hand and we'll make sure we recognize you.
I had one, like, I guess the new thing with the Porch Fair, can somebody speak to that piece as it relates to the Porch Fest and what it's gonna, what's the 5,000, what it's for?
Vito?
So the Porch Fest, if you recall, Commissioner, was the program that Mr. Russo brought forward. So is the 5,000 a number that was agreed upon by South Historic Neighborhood Association to be placed in the budget?
Yes, sir.
So, and I'm sure and I think the original request was significantly higher than the 5,000 brought in, like 3 times that, right?
It was 10,000.
It was
10,000?
11,000 things.
10,000.
But is there another question? I just did that off of memory.
Well, I know the funds and what they were gonna be used for, that's what we were.
Oh, you want to spill on the program itself?
The program, I never seen any the details around what the 5,000 will be used for.
Can you give us the abbreviated version of that program?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Basically 5,000
Come on, just a
could
little
be.
bit.
Do you have any of those flyers before you come up to pass around that I got from you also when we met? You kind of gave us just the last time, but you also had a flyer.
I don't have any multiple copies of the
And I
budget,
don't want
but I do have copies of the.
this right here that you shared with
Yes,
us.
I have that.
And can you share it with them because it kind of gave me a breakdown of
I have a few. I can have these back. I would
If you don't, maybe if you can get somebody to run in there and run some copies off for the rest of the commission.
Yeah, you don't have to be long. I mean, I just kind of a high level.
Can you just
I
give
don't
us a
wanna
synopsis?
slow down. I don't want to slow the
You can
process
still
down.
sit
Just
down
kind of
and
high level.
save it in there when you want to.
anything I'm organized.
No serious
My name
details.
is Vito Russo. I live at 415 Emmett Street.
Go ahead while he's finding it.
From what I understand, the concept of the porch is utilized. There's going to be several porches that are dedicated to music of all genres. Some of the funds will be utilized for publicity, I think, based on what I remember, as well as security. They have met with the police chief as well as the fire chief to secure the locations, to make sure that traffic is not affected to the max. So as far as the overall $5,000, I'm quite sure is spread out and not utilized for one specific thing based on the meetings that I've had with Mr. B.
It appears that they're going to have, what, five officers, 1 firefighter for first aid?
Yes.
Porta potties.
Yes, we have 4 porta potties. Basically what we have, the South Historic District is basically a tic-tac-toe board, is really what it is. You've got Emmett and Kirby going down north-south, and you have basically Dodge and Kirkland Street going east-west.
Is there a partner with the Arts Council for their Porch Fest?
No.
Because I thought we talked about at one point, you said you were going to do your own fundraiser for it, and you weren't going to look at the city for funding. And what we had planned, or whatever we were going to do, like fire, police, whatever, we provide those services. And I didn't know we were going to give up more than the 20-something hundred or something like that. But that's the normal allocations that we had passed.
I think that's what we said last year, and then he decided that he wasn't going to do it. Am I right?
Right.
Vito, and then this year he decided to make it like a community event.
Yes.
And have more porches, I think. I'm just asking.
Yeah, we have combined the music festival, Porch Fest, with charity organizations in the community. There's, I think, 4 or 5 at the moment. There's Feed the Need. There's the Safe Animal Rescue. There's the Christian Service Center. I'm drawing a blank on some of the...
Lee Conley House, Humane Society.
I don't want us to be bogged down with all the intricate details.
And I'm sorry, I don't have, I've misplaced this budget. I saw it this morning, I'm not sure.
I have several.
Let me finish up this thought. I just thought we were gonna have some of the other people contribute to the cause. That's what my understanding was. But if that's not, then.
The overall budget for the music festival is $10,000, maybe 12. And we're asking the C.R.A. for basically half that. And then we're coming up with our own funds.
Okay.
Out of that. Now,
Okay.
that's a slow process. We've been knocking on lots and lots of doors, I assure you, big ones and small ones. And I'm very confident that we're going to be able to raise the funds for the festival because it's a very beautiful, family-friendly event.
Okay. Thank you. I just need to kind of understand and know if, the overall budget and what you're looking for from the city, because I know you said that other people were going to come on board and provide funding for that project. That's why I was asking the question.
Well, Chief Shaw, the public safety end of this is about $1,000. Then there's the musicians are about $5. We've got 17 porches at the moment. We're not sure if we're going to use all of them. It's an iterative process, and so depending on how much money we raise will dictate how many porches we use. There's the porta potties, that's over $1,000. There's
That's fine.
You don't have to get into the weeds.
My question is this: so since we're going through the budget process, so everybody's kind of on the same page, if there's some angst with the allocated number that's there, these numbers are merely the suggestions that are in place. So if you choose to have, if there's a recommendation for a different allocation, then, I mean, this is the time that we discuss it.
No, I mean, I can make do with $5,000.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's all.
You
all
can, but the question is, can the agency? So from the position of the agency itself, is there any concern with the allocation of that number? Because it seems like that number is a moving target, and so I guess the question is, what do we do?
I have several questions with that and then the situation. Vito, when you came to us last year, you specifically said you were going to be purchasing T-shirts and beer with the tax money. What are we specifically funding this year with, if that $5,000 is done, are we funding, what are we funding is my question. Not just the festival, but are we funding, see, because I consider certain things untouchable by tax money.
I understand that, sir, yes.
So what are we actually funding within the Porch Fest?
Well, I can guarantee that we could use the funds simply for the musicians. It'd be as simple as that.
I understand that. Now, my problem with, and this is for the board, my problem, as I have said at numerous meetings, is we've opened the door to funding festivals. We have no policy. This is 5% of the whole budget for the South Side. If 5 of these festivals come to us, we will be at 25% of the budget, and we have no policy. We did require one group. We gave them money, and they paid us back half. Another group borrowed money, paid us back fully. So I'm feeling very strongly that everybody needs to be treated the same. I believe that firmly. But how far are we going to go as a C.R.A. in funding festivals? Because it does take money out of other things that we desperately need, or we wouldn't be a C.R.A. district. So since we don't have a policy, and we don't seem to want to tackle that issue, I'm having an issue with not tackling the issue.
Well, this is something that I've been trying to get done for the longest, and this is what I've always alluded to, where we bring stuff up and then we forget about it. I personally asked that we have a workshop to where we could address those particular things when we're dealing with the funding of various festivals, and it has not happened. I understand where the question comes from with regards to what's going to be funded, and I don't foresee that Mr. B would have a problem with getting that information. I think this is just an overview of what it is that is proposed. It's not overly accepted at this point. So I think in the meantime, before we say yay or nay to the final budget, that if Mr. B could have what our $5,000 would be proposed to cover, I think that may answer a lot of the questions that he may not have at this present moment.
Sure.
Can I say something?
Just 1 second, just 1 second, Commissioner.
I just want to let you guys know, this is a placeholder in the budget. This is not etched in
Right.
stone today.
Okay.
And he is going to have to bring a full proposal to
Okay.
the August
That's what I-
13th
Okay.
C.R.A. meeting. And we can, that number can move up, it can move down, depending on the C.R.A., which will then make that recommendation. And because these numbers are, this is the first shot across our budget now.
It sounds like at that same meeting, we need to have a discussion about what the policy's gonna be as it relates to the festivals.
Man,
I'd like to say
we
something.
talked about,
Just 1 second, Vice Mayor.
I was gonna say, I'm going to think of something else, that we say we wanna do tourism, and it should be at the top of our list, because if we can get tourism going here, it'll bring other businesses and shops. It'll be like a pebble in a pond. And I want us to get policy and procedures so that we know what we do when other people come. The more people come to us, the better our odds are at making this town a place that's a destination. We have not been that in the past. And if we all pull together, then we can all get it done. And we expect that our citizens and those people who work with us on committees to be as mindful of what's trying to be done by the city commission and the rest of us as everything else. So I just want to put that in the
Yes, ma'am.
head.
Commissioner Boardman, then Mr. Stokes.
I had 2 points. One point was the fact that when we did talk about it, we approved a preliminary thing, but Mr. Russo, he did state that they would he wouldn't need to from the C.R.A. The other thing was we did speak about an amount, and we talked about an amount, and before Mr. Reynolds left, and I think you were here at the same time, we established around $7,500 or something along those lines. We gave it a percentage, but we did say that, and it never got written in. So we did establish an amount because we kept talking about what festivals will we fund, and other people might be coming to us for that. And Sam, you talked about that before. So we did say a certain percentage would be, and that should cover for anybody who comes. Here's the amount we're going to have for any festivals across the board. So that's what we have.
Let me,
Hold on.
I want to correct that amount.
Now, hold on 1 second.
Okay.
So you're saying that there was conversation of $7,500 as a total allocation for all festivals from the C.R.A. funds?
That's what I thought I understood.
My recollection, because Azalea walked through that door when it was open, was $1,800, and that's what Azalea got.
Right.
Because that was what we decided, that was what we said was $1,800.
What did we give Sam Hall and those?
His was a loan of
I know.
$9,000, but he paid it back.
Okay.
It was a loan, it wasn't a
I know it was a loan, but I
I think we're having this
Yeah, that was
conversation
Sam's
with,
car.
I think we're having this conversation when we already kind of stated that we need to have it workshop, or we need to have the dialogue.
But we're
So
in the conversation already.
Just 1 second. Mr.
that's why we
Stokes.
need to implement it.
Yeah, I agree with everything I said here. We definitely need to have a policy drafted on how we're going to allocate and who gets what. But I also think, I'm looking at your flyer, Mr. Dito, or Mr. Russo, apologize. We're expecting between 1,000, 2,000 people in attendance. I think one of the things we need to be mindful of, and I'm hoping I'm not a voice of one here, is that when we allocate funds for these events, that we're bringing people into the city that wouldn't normally come to the city. That we're just not having a block party for folks that already live in Palatka and having a good time for 1,000, 2,000 of us to show up and enjoy the festivities, but are showing off what we have in downtown Palatka. Because on any given weekend, you can go over to the riverfront, you can find something. It's booming. That park is absolutely full of children and adults all the time. So I think those are some of the good things that we've done in the past. I just think when we do our policy, we need to make that cost benefit part of it, you know, on how we bring people into the community. That's from the outside in.
May I speak to that point?
Briefly.
The South Side is putting a lot of structure into this music festival. We have 8 different subcommittees. We have 2 leaders in every one of the subcommittees. And then we made an advisory board. On the advisory board, we brought in people from outside the South District in order to bring in some expertise. Now, one of the things that is very important, it's hard to estimate how many people we're going to have on this 2018 festival, but
Understood.
In order to bring people in, that's a major concern. So, but we're addressing that by combining it with other community organizations in the community, and we're bringing, as an example, we're bringing in the high school band is going to be here. They're going to be part of it. So by combining it with other organizations, community service organizations in Palatka and in Putnam County, that's going to draw a lot of people into town that usually will not be here. So I think that we're addressing Mr. Suggs' concern. But to address Mr. Deputy's concern, the proper use of C.R.A. funds, the whole purpose of the C.R.A. is for community redevelopment. And we're modeling this Sports Fest after Jacksonville Sports Fest. This is they have blazed the path for us. It is the Springfield Historic District's signature annual event, and it is instrumental in revitalizing that historic district, and it's been proven. So we're just basically modeling ours festival after theirs, and we expect the same result.
And you can put that proof in your proposal? I mean, I'm with that, but I'd like to read it.
I would like to. I'll get the executive director from Springfield Historic District to write me a letter.
Okay, well, I think it needs to be an objective source.
Okay.
An objective source.
So,
Where would we get Springfield Historic?
That's what I mean, you know. See, when I go to the TDC, they ask me those specific questions for funding, and I have to have a third-party source. I have to go to the hotels and say, can you tell me what your occupancy rate was during my event? Okay, I just can't give them figures. So the objective source is what proves that you have brought people in from outside the community. And that's what's important. That's what's important. We can trade money all we want, but we need more.
Well, I think that is part of the revitalization, but we could have revitalization without bringing a single soul extra in that's not normally in the city.
I don't want to spend, just one second. I don't want to spend a whole budget session talking about the Porch Fest. I would rather for us to start to get to some other stuff. We definitely appreciate the input from all y'all, but we're going to move this forward at this time. Unless there's a suggestion to change that line item, we're moving forward.
Thank you.
Anybody have a suggestion? Any preference as to what we put it at this point? So we can deal with it on the August 13th meeting and come back with a suggestion before we adopt the final budget if you'd like to, unless you have a suggestion now.
Well, right now, based on, I would say funding that, whatever we funded it, any festivals in the past as it relates to that with fire police and all that stuff, whatever that cost would be. And I think we had traveled that road before.
The only thing we've done previously was the $1,800 and $1,200 for
Right.
Porch. Well, those are the only two that we funded.
And I'm expecting to look,
Whatever the permit fees are, I think that would be.
Would you like for us to title the line item festivals, and then that way we have the ability to be flexible within that line and put 5,000 there, or?
And you shortchange of other festivals.
Is everyone okay with just doing it 7,500 for now?
Yeah.
That seemed to be a number that was out there for festivals.
Can we,
75?
As a placeholder.
I kind of want to look at the notes. I just asked Betsy if I can get notes as a reminder of what we said. I just don't kind of remember that commitment. But
Leave that. Well, just leave it where it is
Okay.
and retitle it as opposed to title it Porch Fest. Title it festivals or activities.
And this is only
And
for
then we
the
can come
South
back.
Historic
That's just South
District.
Historic.
Right,
And
right.
then
We have a festivals in downtown.
Right. Is there anything else that we need to address as it relates to South Historic? Any other concerns with what's been proposed thus far from the expenditure list? Moving the presentation.
Okay, so this is downtown, we've made it. The The revenues are based on millage for both the county and the city contribution. We're gonna get into the expenditures. SBDC, $8,000 was moved to the general fund. We have a few new lines within the expenditures in downtown. We have marketing and promotions. We have the facade grant and the public art. Those are all new.
Just can you explain the marketing and promotions aspect so that everyone can be clear?
Yes, I believe that was requested to,
It was a request from DPI and Revitalize Historic Palatka.
Just, and the marketing is it marketing the downtown area in totality, or is it marketing specific events, or what is it?
No, we had proposed that, and we want to fill that out further, but we need to market Palatka, not individual businesses, because that would be a disaster. But if we market Palatka, I think that we can see some growth with that and bring some people from outside. It needs to be very creative. We cannot use the C.R.A. money to market the golf course or anything outside the district. And so we believe just generally marketing Palatka and what it has to offer and the ambiance, whatever it is, to get people here, is what we would like to see happen, and we would like to make a proposal for that on the 13th meeting to discuss what direction that can take.
So does the promotions aspect of it include events as well?
I think it could include events that would be community-wide.
With a draw to downtown.
And nonprofit.
And I guess the question is, one of the things I see, and I agree with you, when you do any type of online search, your Google AdWords or anything else, you're pulling negative aspects up. You're not pulling the positive. And so I think we've got to concentrate more on the online presence and pulling some of those things in. Any questions from anyone else?
No, I just want to agree with you. I think that if we don't get out here, people not going to come to us. We got to go and pull them in there. And if we don't do things, and they got so much stuff in the media now that can help us. And as y'all know, I take the books and stuff with me when I go. Some of y'all need to put some of those in your car and take them as you go, because all of y'all got friends and neighbors, and help them pass the word. And I think if we don't start doing that marketing, we're in trouble.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Bobby Trail, 18 Dodge. I think that what we want to come back with a specific plan on how to use that funding in the best way possible to promote downtown Palatka and marketing. And to that end, we also would want some data points to offer to the C.R.A. board to show what we've done with it and what we've accomplished. So we really want to do it in a constructive and well-planned way, and not just fritter away the funds.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I want to see us do some of this stuff and stop talking about it. I've been seeing all these years, and I haven't heard nothing but talk. I want to see some stuff done.
okay, so also in the expenditure lines, we have an increase to Christmas lights. We have gone out for and received quotes and additional lighting, help to put up the lights. Is that correct? We're going to have Ms. Tucker speak to the lights.
Sorry, yeah, I sent out for quotes. The company that did it last year came in significantly higher this year, and they're still unable to do the trees the way that we've typically done them in the past and the way that we want to do them. Angels in the Architecture came in right around $20,200 to light the trees along St. John's the way we like the trunks and the main limbs to the top. We're also going to need to purchase this year new bows and some additional garland.
Well, according to Sam, there probably won't be no trees or tree limbs down St. John's. So I can save $35,000. We can save $35,000 right now.
I want to, Mandy, ask these two questions just to make sure that they're in our notes. For 2019, we would love to see, I think is it 11th Street?
Yes, you had mentioned that you were going to try to get me some photos of how it was
Yes.
lit before.
You know, if we're going to try to redevelop 11th Street corridor by the chamber, there used to be Christmas lights there, but we have forgotten that through the years, and we need to institute that back and make that an extension of downtown. We need to start promoting that area, so we would like to see that added to 19. And then, according to our discussion, each block will be the same. It'll just be different according to the trees that are there.
That is correct.
So are we gonna be doing Christmas in July too for 35,000?
And they'll go up right before the Christmas parade.
You can't leave
and
them
stay
up?
through the new. No, because the lights themselves are rented. You have to use commercial grade lighting for the companies to come in and do it.
They're rented? So what can you, hold on. So for $35,000 a year, we're renting lights just for Christmas?
For 20,000, we're renting the lights. The other is for us to purchase the additional garland and the bulbs that we need.
So why don't we so have we looked into purchasing lights?
In the past, we purchased lights and hung them in-house, and it never worked out well.
You did for a while.
And it was pretty, it was pretty, but
Now-
the labor, it's very labor intensive. All of our departments are very short-handed. I don't know how we would find enough people to get them up. And we were typically buying the mini lights from, not commercial grade, we were buying residential
How
grade.
much were we spending in the past?
I would have to defer that question to Mr. Griffith.
I
he
was
just took-
thinking,
And that was Charles Rudd. that
And
was
Charles Rudd as well.
handling
It was
putting
before
those
me.
up.
The
Yeah,
budget
his
was
son.
$8,000 and $12,000.
Okay,
So again, if we were spending 8 and 12,000 and we hired somebody to put the lights up, it would still be a fraction of what we're spending
every year.
now, and then you don't have to worry about using staff to do it. You can contract with somebody to actually put the lights up.
But that's,
But then that
that's
comes around
what
out.
you mean someone who doesn't normally hang lights? I got quotes from all of the lighting companies I could find.
I'm just doing basic math.
No, I understand, and I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that I got quotes from all of the companies that hang lights.
And
And they charge
35,000 is the
20,000?
best?
And 20,000 was
200.
the best for what we want. There's additional monies in there for other supplies that are needed,
And how long historically have the lights?
as well as 11th Street, yeah.
So how long historically do the lights last? The ones that we were purchasing regularly?
Mind if I speak to that since I've actually been in the hood?
You've actually done it.
not even until Christmas.
Yeah, so one of the issues we have with the lights is sometimes they get ripped down by delivery trucks. On top of that, water and electricity doesn't mix. So from time to time, they trip the GFI breakers. We got to get out there and reset those. The lights don't last more than a year, typically. We do get lucky every once in a while, and a string that's still up on the tree will still work. But the number was inflated because there was a request that came from DPI and RHP to include additional areas. We didn't have accurate quotes on that because we hadn't had time to reach back out to those contractors. So it went from the 20,000 plus some other materials and included, 10 to 15 to, do 11th Street. Was there a request to actually just contract for some employment and buy the materials? I'm sorry, I had to step outside.
No, it's just a question.
Is
It
it
wasn't a
possible to do
request.
that?
My question was just to see what was the difference in the numbers of doing it in-house versus doing it on an annual basis at a certain amount, just to see how different those two numbers were.
Unfortunately, I haven't looked at that. I do have the historical perspective to know how many people and how many man hours it takes, so we could do that and come back to you. It would be less, because obviously, they're gonna be looking at that same cost and then putting a markup on it to make a profit.
So I guess the question is, if we're not using residential grade, we're using the commercial grade or the same type lighting that the company uses, kind of being able to,
The lights themselves do not cost a lot, to be completely honest with you. We bought the lights before. The lights is not where the majority of the cost is. It's the labor to put them up.
Well, that would be, we want to give people a job. That would give somebody a job for
2 weeks.
the holidays.
2 weeks?
It took them.
Temporary
Well,
job?
when we did it in-house.
It don't
was more
matter.
than- But when the company did it last year, it took them 2 weeks.
But that's fine. I mean,
How many
that's
people?
2 weeks somebody can,
They
that might
probably
help
had about
somebody.
6 people in their crew.
2 weeks with about 6 laborers.
But to do that job, I've seen it both ways. I've seen it done well, and I've seen it done shoddy.
Yeah.
And shoddy didn't work, and I can tell you, my tree didn't last until We turned it on the week of Thanksgiving, and by December, my tree was down. It never worked again, because it was not
Messed the
done
residential
well.
line.
And then a Bubba truck came from a dangling, we had dangling wires, you know, and a truck came along and took it. Nothing you can do, you're done for the season.
I still would like to see us buy the lights and get somebody to.
So my question would be, if we allowed for the, I guess the contracted company to come in and provide the lights, if a truck comes through and knocks them down, then they would be responsible for getting them back up?
If you know the truck that did it.
No, I'm talking, no. If we purchase,
Yeah.
if we outright purchase the lights and we have staff or we hire people to come in and do it, well, I just heard the statement about then if a truck come through and knock them down, either way, they need to go back up. So if we went through and we purchased them for 20,000, we contracted for 20,000, if they get knocked down,
Does the contractor come back?
do the contract put them back up at no cost?
No.
Okay, so, you know, irregardless, it's gonna cost us a decent amount for the contractor either way. Now, I think this is, I mean, it's a good conversation. I think we need to think that through in terms of the amount of money. And we also got something, what about on the end of the riverfront right there? We talked about a tree at one point, a Christmas tree.
That's all I wanted was a Christmas tree.
We did talk
We
about
priced
that.
Christmas trees last year, and they start at about 15,000,
15,000?
and that's where you add to them.
The C.R.A.
Can I-
didn't have that conversation.
Man, can I ask you something?
Yes, ma'am.
Why don't we have a Christmas contest and see if some of the organizations in town put up Christmas trees and then do that? We'd have more than one Christmas tree
That's a good idea.
in
Well,
the downtown and
but
we really.
Sheila McCoy does that as a fundraiser.
But, so.
Well, it
so-
doesn't matter. I mean,
but
just as long as we get
I
them
want to keep
up.
us on
Let's
task.
go.
I want to keep us on task when we're dealing with the budget.
35,000 right here.
You only got, and you got 15 minutes left. I want to keep you on task of dealing with the budget item itself.
Right.
From the, not the details. We'll get bogged down in the details, I think. And so, from the budget side of it, for now, is there any issue with leaving that number allocated at 35,000?
I have a problem with the 35.
Any suggestions?
I had a problem too. I was asking if they could purchase them.
Oh, let's bring it
Because we
up.
can amend this, right? This can be easily amended.
Can we amend it or
You
change it,
can.
right?
This is the time to do
I
that.
said,
Okay.
this
So are you wanting to reallocate the dollars to another program or elsewhere?
Let's do this. Let's go. Let's keep that thought in mind, and then we'll go through all the other
Okay.
items.
Okay.
And then we may find other places that you may
Okay.
have other emphasis.
So
Okay.
moving on, the next thing, we already did facade, or spoke to the facade grant being in there this year. Landscaping, there was an increase to the
One
landscaping.
question on facade. Are we
Yes.
doing facade at 5,000 again, as it was historically? What's the amount for facade?
To my knowledge, it's still 5,000.
5,000, yes, ma'am.
I wanted to make a suggestion that the program be reviewed. It's been on the shelf a while, and maybe
Right.
some revisions before you put it out.
Right.
Okay.
But even
Even the
so,
amount, even the maximum amount or minimum amount.
right, so even so, looking at the allocation, let's just use the historical perspective of where it was at 5,000. We're only looking at funding for facade grant, or thereabouts, based upon what's there. If you gave maximum allocation, based on what was already in the past for CBD.
Okay, so the next line item is landscaping, and it has been increased.
So if we got, so just so that we all know, there's conversation that some private businesses are looking to do some landscaping from 3rd Street to the riverfront. Has that been taken into consideration with the increase in landscaping for downtown?
I've had some conversations with that group. We have not seen any progress as a result of those discussions yet. We're still optimistic that if they bring forward some revenue, we'll match it. There's some significant things that need to be done to our irrigation system that's no longer working, that was installed in the early 90s on St. John's Avenue. It was taken into consideration. There were additional requests that came from, I believe, DPI and RHP for some landscaping along the whole St. John's Avenue corridor. That's one of the primary reasons for the increase, sir.
Last conversation with that group was they were concerned about the irrigation aspects. I think they spoke to you
Yeah, I
about
kind
it.
of pumped the brakes on them so we could figure out we could afford the irrigation.
My question is just that, assuming that takes place because they already have someone contracted, upon approval, it may be some savings and there may not be, and I just want to make sure, I just want to know whether your estimate factored that in. Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask, since the county offices take up so much out of downtown, could we look at asking them to help participate in getting the landscaping and stuff done?
Say that again, Ms. Mary?
I said, since y'all take up so much of our downtown, could you all participate in helping to do some of the landscaping and upgrading of St. John's Avenue?
Ms. Mary, we already participate and contribute $202,000 into the C.R.A. fund. So I believe the county is already participating.
No, that's our money.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. That's the county's portion of the tip.
I know, but I pay some of that. I pay some of that. That's my money I'm getting back, and I'm not getting nothing for.
All right, so moving on to,
I have some questions on landscaping.
give them some.
We landscaped years ago up to 3rd and 4th Street, and then we were promised that the next landscaping would go down because the area going from 3rd and 4th or 4th to 11th hasn't been landscaped. Well, that was before I came back in '03. And so that's been, 15 years that I know of, and that hasn't come to fruition. And if the trimming of the trees isn't in there for this year, then I want to make sure that that is the #1 priority, because I'm hearing it that from a lot of people about, that's something they notice as soon as they get there. There's dead branches in over 100, because I marked them, 100 out of the 144 trees have major dead branches. So Halloween, we look great. We don't look great right now. And it needs to be in there, and then we need to work on landscaping, because what's happening is we're spending more money at the riverfront than we're spending in the whole rest of the district, and some areas have yet to see anything since this started in 1983. And it's time to see the whole district get something. And I want to push for that.
How far is the landscape estimate going out to?
I'm sorry, sir?
Does it encompass the entire district?
There's enough money in there to encompass the entire district, not to re-landscape everything. I would suggest, just like we do with other advisory committees, that if DPI is the vehicle for that request, and your members are, representative of that district, maybe they can suggest some areas they'd like to see some landscaping, and staff can work with you to complete that this fiscal year if it stays in the budget.
We will get with RHP and we will work on that, but let me go back. We don't need an advisory committee to talk about trimming the trees.
Okay. I got 2 minutes.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that the grants that Mr. Deputy has referred, the work he was talking about, all of the landscaping that was done up to 3rd and 4th, those were all CDBG grant-related projects, and that just happens to be the focus of where those grants have been. That was all grant-funded at the riverfront. And of course, Mr. Griffith and his arborist skills and expertise, and we got a lot of stuff donated. And I agree that the trees need some attention. They're nearing the end of the life for a Drake elm.
Okay,
No,
so,
I was just gonna make a smart comment.
I will say that. Go ahead.
Because on the
Okay,
landscaping,
so the HIP program, it does say that it is showing a decrease. However, it looks like back in the budget of 17, it was rolled over to 18, which is why it increased. Now we're back to the regular 30,000. So then the next few line items are all transfers to other funds. We have transfer to general, to Better Place, and to the utility. The utility is the same as the south that we just spoke about, with the 33%. And then we have the general for the fireworks, Christmas lights, and admin expenses, which is nothing new. And then the Better Place transfer. It is a proposal, $48,000 to move the clock tower. It has been discussed previously from what I can, a long time ago, maybe even before this commission, I'm not sure. But since there is a project going on in Better Place right now in the general area, we were hoping to scope that all together to make it a more convenient landscape down there. So that is the proposal. Any questions?
Any additions, questions, deletions?
Well,
Mr. Suggs, before I...
Just a comment. I mean, I don't want to, I think Sam's on to something here with this marketing thing. You know, I will tell you that for the last 3 years being here, we always have family and friends come over and during Christmas time, Thanksgiving and Christmas time, and always take them down St. John's Avenue. To me, that is also a form of marketing. And so don't want to lose sight of the opportunity if that's one of the things that we want to do with Christmas lights. It does draw people in. It really does. It's that stretch of 10 blocks there is just phenomenal at night. So just my 2 cents.
I'll tell you something else that draws in. Going over to Pensacola, taking a trip there, fireworks. After their events at their baseball stadium, they do fireworks, and we were absolutely amazed that no one left the game. 5,000 people were there. No one left the game just to stay for the monthly fireworks. And many people came to baseball games, not caring about baseball, just to see it. And their costs were like $4,000 per month to do it. Most of it was sponsored by private businesses as opposed to being something spent by the city as a whole, or even by the C.R.A. And it's a consideration. The other thing is, I want us to be conscious about the facade grants. Creating the facade in itself, looking at increasing what we're doing as far as some of the buildings, the way they look as people come through downtown, and even getting to a point where we start to deal with the paving issues that we have with St. John's Avenue. It goes a long ways to starting to have people come in and really take a look. The other thing I also talked about, and we had conversation, and we at one point talked about maybe just taking it from reserves, was an electronic sign, which was somewhere near the River Center or in one of the other locations that we had, which would actually direct people into downtown or in the historic district if we had an event or whatever may have taken place, so that people would actually know what was going on, and it was another draw. So as they passed through town, they would know to make that right turn or left turn and see what's going on. And that way we could start to self-promote more events through that as well. And we kind of looked at the initial cost of it. It was around $25,000, $30,000, depending on what type of sign you had in there. And that was something that we spoke to Mr. Crow about as well. And so it's just a point of consideration when we start talking about the marketing promotions aspect. Yes, ma'am.
An additional wayfinding signage, not clutter, but attractive wayfinding signage. Look at some of the cities that are successful. If you want to consider, which I know is coming up for discussion, the Trail Town designation, we need to have wayfinding signage to get people downtown.
Right, and it's on this budget, but it's not up there. The 20,000 is on what you emailed me, right?
It's 15,000.
15, or is that 10?
There's 15,000 in the budget for wayfinding.
Okay.
And you're right, there are some things that are in right, these are the highlights. These are some of the changes.
And so festivals is still in there also?
Right, correct, yes, sir.
Well, I want to go back to the clock tower. Is this the time to put 48,000 to move the clock tower?
No.
I'm, you know, because we had even talked about moving it to the courthouse at one time. Let your county deal with it. But you know, there's so many things we need, and I'd like to hear why we want to move it at this. You know, what is the advantage to moving it at this time versus? Thank you, John.
Yeah,
Mr. Beard.
Mr. Deputy, thank you for asking that question. So this conversation has been ongoing since before 2012. The reason this is in here is because we've had some inquiries from some of the larger events and some of the coordinators for the larger events, and they do have a difficult time fitting larger tents on the northern lawn, which is where they like to hold the majority of the event. So this is our opportunity to put it before you for your discussion. If it's not something you want to move forward with, we need that direction so that we can communicate that back to those event coordinators. I can tell you this came from Blue Crab, it came from the Chamber, ESPN.
Can they contribute to this cause?
I have not asked that question, sir.
So
Where's the proposed location?
The original location that was discussed prior, back in 2012, I apologize, was at the terminus of St. John's Avenue in the middle of the brick circle. We actually have some drawings and some renderings for that. There is the original plaza design, which was never came to fruition for Millennium Clock Tower, that we were looking at incorporating into that, relocation and installation. But the location is at the terminus of St. John's Avenue, sir.
We've still got the pictures, the artist renderings in the safe.
Can we
Just
see
pull
that?
that out.
I'm just interested in seeing it. If it's up for discussion, if you can get it to us at some point, because I would like to see it.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
So where the flagpole is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it will cost $48,000 to move that?
Sir, we don't know the final cost right now. The last time I costed this was back in 2012. That number is not accurate. It was lower than this. We're working with a contractor right now and a subcontractor, frame contractor, final cost. We also have to get an architect or engineer involved because Florida Building Code has changed since then. So the plans that we have on file may have to be redone. But
And all that infrastructure's gonna have to be.
we just need to know this is something that this board is interested in.
And that clock tower needs to be reconditioned too, right?
It does. Yes, sir. That is something that would be taken into consideration at the same time.
So the two items that I believe that we have discussion on is Christmas lights and the clock tower. Do we feel as if we need to reallocate these dollars? We want to change the dollars, revise?
Yes, sir.
Sitting here is a unique position today as a former city manager. I'm going to tell you, we talked about this for the 2+ years I was here, and the benefit that it would bring for the open space at the riverfront. And I believe the original design was to have it at the terminus of St. John's and Memorial. And we do host a lot of events in town at the riverfront. There are a lot of outside dollars that come in, heads and beds, restaurants, and stores and all that. They do benefit from it. So anything I think we can do at the riverfront, it's a one-time fee to provide more green space for these types of events will benefit us in the long run.
And moving that clock tower to the terminus of St. John's Avenue was in the red REDD design that the commission did adopt. Jonathan, do you remember what year, was that in 2012? It was before then. It was 2010. And they adopted modules that they can pick and choose from, say, well, we want to do this part, and next we want to do this part. But that was part of it, was moving it to the terminus of St. John's, just so you could increase your green space for events.
And I can tell you, it created some difficulty when it came down to, qualification or even specifications concerning Bassmaster Elite, which we just got the announcement back on that. But all the vaulting of retention, all those things were critical to continually being able to support having the event in place, considering the fact that we don't have as much green space as we previously had when the event first started coming here. And when you look at those events, to spend down $48,000 versus losing an event that could stimulate the economy by $2 million, you've got to take those things into consideration.
It is in, Mr. Griffiths, it is in my C.R.A. notebook, the pictures of that clock there. I know that.
Yes, sir.
And I like it there. I do like to watch it as I come over the bridge to see if I'm late. But
right now it has no power, so don't rely on
I'm kind of dead in the water right now. But I know know that we have discussed it, and I know it's in the plan. I just didn't know if this was the time to do that. Because from what you're saying, it would still be a year before we could get that done, correct?
And not necessarily, sir. We have a contractor that's mobilized, and assuming that they can get a subcontractor in place that's comfortable with it. And we do know the architectural and engineering costs. It's less than $3,000. There's an initial proposal for around $1,500 to do an assessment. And if it meets current building code, that will be the cost for that. If it needs additional planning, it'll be another $1,500 for the design of the plans and construction administration and inspection. So that cost I'm not worried about. And the engineer is already on the project as well. It's just a matter of getting a crane contractor that's comfortable in moving something of that nature, especially something that they may not do on a daily basis. We will reach out to the clock manufacturing company. They're still in business, so they may be able to consult when it comes to that. The original quote was less than $30,000. But again, that was 6+ years ago.
And you would talk to the Woodmen of the World on their flagpole?
You can go back and review the minutes, but it was part of the discussion when the commission accepted the donation from Woodmen of the World. That pole might have to move if the clock tower was to get relocated.
The only thing I would ask is that, in looking at what we've got, is that we reduce Christmas lights down and increase facade grants. I would say maybe a $5,000 shift.
So Christmas from 35 to 30?
That's
And
just,
facade, 25?
that's my suggestion. If there are any others.
Yeah, I got a one on the transfer of that clock tower to down to 40.
Is 40 realistic to transfer over for a clock tower movement?
Again, right now, it's just a placeholder.
Okay.
But you can go ahead and make that adjustment right now. If it's more, we'll have to come back and talk to the agency.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want me to just, if we move the 8 off of there, do you want me to just put it in to not reallocate it just in case we need it, or?
If we've got the 8, I would suggest that we use it for wayfinding.
Okay.
If that's okay with the agency as a whole.
Well, we had it in there for wayfinding.
We got some additional, but that would give us some additional,
Okay.
additional opportunities.
Okay. All right, are we ready to move on?
Everybody good? Move
How much did you say for moving the clock down?
40.
From 48 to 40.
Okay, so now we're on to the North Historic. Same thing with the revenues, there's a county share and a city share. Moving on to the expenditures, Christmas tour, there was no change. The F.R.A. annual dues did increase a little, not by much. The home improvement program decreased, and that was due to, we have plugged into the budget a debt payment for the road reconstruction. We have, we have $20,000 programmed in there as a debt payment. That will get us roughly $250,000 for 20 years, with 4% interest. So, if you want to speak to the project.
Yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, sorry. It was requested by the North Tip Advisory Committee that we look at the cost of basically raising and resetting the brick road and reinstalling the curbing on North 3rd Street because of its horrible condition. We got costs back from the contractor, Klein Construction, who's currently doing the gravity sewer project in that corridor. It was approximately $185,000. At the same time, it's important to note that part of the problem and the reason that that corridor is so bad is because of inadequate stormwater drainage. And we're not going to be able to address that just by conveying it by curb line. They're going to have to install some inlets and piping. So that's the reason for the $250,000. I have not had an opportunity to really consult the engineer as well as the contractor on the extent of the stormwater repair.
What about SRF in there? The SRF payment?
The SRF payment. Fortunately, with the Water Management District grant funding and the amount of money that the North Tip had already set aside as far as capital they had in advance of the project, we were able to pay for their potable line project without any debt service. So they can take on this debt service payment in lieu of that one.
Can I ask a question? years ago, I don't think we get the prison labor like we used to, but they re-brick some of the streets, and they use that for a training program for inmates to help them have something to say that they have learned how to do in getting out of prison and stuff, and it saved, I think we had to have somebody who oversee the project, and we had enough bricks and stuff to do it. Is there any way for us to look at doing anything like that again?
Ms. Brown, it would be my recommendation that the type of installation that needs to happen compared to what they used to do, where they just raise the bricks up and they put it back on compacted subgrade and not back on crushed concrete or lime rock, we'd have the same problem in another 20 years.
Okay.
So I don't think they would have the skill set or the capabilities to complete a project to the extent that we want, especially if we're investing $250,000.
But that way, if we had it that way, we wouldn't have to invest that much money, but that's okay.
Understood, yes, ma'am.
At one time, we had 4 prison crews. One of them was gratis from the DOC, and we had one prison crew that did nothing but re-brick streets and redo sidewalks. So I know that we're up to 2 now. I just got the contract in on the second one today, so that's in place. So I don't know if that's something that we want to look at.
Just from my observations and what the prisoners are capable of, I think the best use of their time is to mow and blow grass.
Okay.
But that was a training program that would help some folks to have something on their resumes when they got out, help them get jobs to work twofold.
And I believe they're getting a skill set when they leave here. I just believe that some of the roads that we're discussing are some of the same roads that they previously fixed.